Dave Rothenberg is in today. You can hear us, as always, in over 400 markets nationwide, and that's just a wonderful platform for us. And the phone number is always 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Time now for a little Straight Talk, and it's always brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. We're going to get into basketball. John Morant has decided to, in the biggest shock of all shocks, forego his junior and senior seasons. But we start with a little bit of baseball, and there is mass concern from Yankee Nation. I mean, what is happening here with this team? They're sitting here at 2-4. They look awful. They're playing guys you didn't know who they were a couple weeks ago. Calm down. The Yankee fan needs to absolutely calm down. They will be fine. You're 6 games in to 162. Yet all you have is we're 2-4. We're falling behind. It doesn't look right. We're losing to teams that we shouldn't be losing to. You're right. You're losing to teams you shouldn't be losing to. But let's be honest here. They're still going to wind up as a good baseball team. It's not a football team that lost the first 5 games of a season. This is not the football team that started out 2-4 in a season. You know what this is the equivalent of? A football team that had a bad first drive. That's what this is. That's where we are. This is a bad first drive. You turn the ball over on downs at the 48. You're 6 games in. There's no reason to be concerned. There's no reason to panic. Now we'll get into the Mets in a moment. And let's make that moment right now. What we have on the other side of town with the New York Mets, and watching the Yankees struggle at 2-4, and to see the Mets at 5-1, home opener taking place just moments from now at Citi Field, is unbelievable. And I think it is fair to sit here and say, and I think it's unequivocal, and you can call and argue, and again, the number is 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I would sit here and tell you that you can have Blake Snell, you can have Justin Verlander, you can have Max Scherzer. In one game, the guy, the answer, the pitcher is Jacob deGrom. We had so many conversations last year with, he's very good, but he's playing in meaningless games. Yes, he hasn't allowed more than 3 runs in almost a full season. And yes, his strikeouts are off the charts, but, he's a great pitcher. He wins a Cy Young. Can he duplicate? Can he duplicate? He's better now. He's better now than he was last year. So the Mets, Jacob deGrom, and we'll get to the Phillies and the Nationals and the Dodgers and the Astros who've gotten off to a slow start, and the Red Sox who are not good right now, although they did get a win last night. Let's take a listen, though. Mark Teixeira, our ESPN Major League Baseball analyst, was on with Golick and Wingo, and he is explaining to us how difficult it is to hit one Jacob deGrom right now.
The way his ball was moving last night, he may never give up another run. I mean, that was an impressive outing. Hitting a home run was fun, too. But Jacob deGrom, the way he's manipulating pitches right now in and out of the strike zone, it's tough to hit him.
Because he's awesome. That's why. And he was awesome last year. 13 innings, no runs allowed, strikes out 14, a career high last night. More from Teixeira. How could the Mets potentially make it to the postseason?
It may not be a world championship. It may not even be division winners. But if they can win enough games, if they can stay healthy, I think they can sneak into the playoffs. And then once you get to the playoffs, a lot of good things can happen. I think the big question for the Mets is, number one, obviously the health. But some of these young hitters, Alonso, Rosario, if these guys can continue to get better, and if you can get anything from Cespedes later in the season, then the Mets have a lineup that you can really put against the Phillies and some of those other teams.
It certainly is exciting. I mean, to be a Mets fan, to be looking at what the potential is with this club, it certainly is exciting. Other teams that have gotten off to really, really terrific starts, Philadelphia. Now, the Phillies, they lose one last night, but still, I mean, with Bryce Harper and the additions there, and Gabe Kapler's really kind of, it looks like they've taken that to the next level. If you're a Phillies fan, you got to be excited. If you're a Nats fan, you got to be a little bit concerned. Right? You lose the best player that you've ever seen He stays in division. You got to see him 19 times. He's a cult figure already in Philadelphia. Washington, very slow start. They did pick up a win, though, yesterday. What else have we seen early on in Major League Baseball season? The Dodgers hit a lot of home runs. The Dodgers have a ton of power, and that is a team that's going. I mean, look, they've gone to the World Series last 2 years, and yes, if you had to pick a team to come from the National League right now, you'd probably say the Dodgers, and that's without a healthy Clayton Kershaw as of yet. But Kenley Jansen's still a horse at the back end of that bullpen, and we know the talent that the Dodgers certainly do have. But the Yankees are the story, guys, and I will sit here and I will tell you 2 reasons why you should be fine about the Yankees. It's 6 games into the season, which is comical. You're 6 games into a season. And number 2, what's the Red Sox record right now? As panicked as you are, you're a Yankees fan. You're 2-4. The sky is falling. I'm playing guys I never heard of. I'm on my 3rd string shortstop, right? Didi Gregorius, he can't last. He's out. That's number 1. I got Troy Tulowitzki. He's on the IL, which I'm not comfortable calling it yet, but I'm moving in that direction to call it the IL. And now he's out. So now Gleyber Torres is going to have to play shortstop for me. And all these things, and the sky is falling, and we can't figure out a way to make it work, and all these problems and mass hysteria and cats and dogs and the whole thing. And what's the Yankees record? They're 2-4. And what's the Red Sox record? Realistically, probably the only team that can compete to win this division with the Yankees. What's their record? Yeah, that's right. They're 2-5. So let's calm down. We are at the infancy stages. And there are certain teams that when you hear their fan base, you just kind of shake your head. When their fan base complains, you say, I don't want to hear you complain. I don't believe in your complaints. And at the end of the day, you're going to be fine. And that, my friends, is the definition of the Yankees. They will be fine. They will be fine. So you can panic about it now. And I know that Stephen A. is probably, all concerned about his 2-4 Yankees. But they will be fine. And that's Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE network. So where else do we go here? We'll get into the NBA draft in a couple of minutes and John Morant and all that good stuff. But I think it's fun. Baseball is just starting. We're a week in. Most fans who thought their team was going to be a certain way are sitting here saying, yeah, it's about right. But how about if you're an Orioles fan? How about if you're an Orioles fan right now and you look at it and you say, wait a minute, we're 4-2? Or the Blue Jays and you say, wait a minute, we actually have a respectable team right here? I mean, baseball, I get it. It's a long journey. Here's the difference. You can go to a baseball game with, children, friends, significant others, whoever you want. You can go, hang out, baseball game, enjoy it, right? You could just go and take in the day and maybe even get there a little bit late, have a beer or two, have a hot dog, 8th inning, it's 4:30, you want to go, you can go. It's the beauty of what baseball is. It's the national pastime is what baseball is. It's different. It's different than every other sport. Could you imagine going to a football game and saying, you know what, if we get there at 1:17, that's fine. That's no issue. No, baseball's not like that. Baseball's kind of, you go, you take it in, you absorb it all, you go home, and you do it the next day. Baseball's that old friend that never, ever, ever goes away. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I can't wait to hear from the Yankee fan that is in sheer panic and there's pandemonium about the lack of success with this team right now. Let's see. Danny in Virginia. Danny, lead us off. You're on ESPN Radio.
Yes, I'm a Yankee fan from Richmond, Virginia, and have been a Yankee supporter for years. My son's a Red Sox fan, so we've got a good family thing going on. Yeah, it's way too early, 5-6 games into the series, but I just don't understand what's going on. Stanton's already on injured reserve. Is that not true?
That is very true.
And who are they playing this weekend? The Washington Nationals?
I know they play the Orioles, and then I think I don't know who they play this weekend. I know they had the Astros coming up at some point, but the Orioles they start a set with the Orioles today, and that's in Baltimore.
But yeah, it's much too early to think about what's going on and all the money that's in the sport and Pedroia's on injured reserve and all. But nothing's no better than those Yankees and Fenway fans, and just come to say I have no idea in what direction we're going here, but baseball is very early in this season. That new football league has gone defunct. And let's think about this Final Four going on with those Virginia Cavaliers. But that's all I want to say. I've enjoyed your show this morning. Sorry I missed Stephen A., but I've enjoyed what's going on with the Yankees.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you, Danny. I certainly appreciate it. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Stephen A. will be back tomorrow. He's just a day. Everybody needs a day, and Stephen A. is taking that day in this one. But baseball, again, it's so comforting. Like, other sports are so stressful. At least that's the way I see it. Other sports are so stressful. You sit down, you watch a game, you're heated, you're emotional. Baseball, it's like you put your feet up, you read a book, you glance up. Yeah, it's exciting, it's interesting. Now I can read a chapter. Then you go back to it. Then you can read a chapter. I'm going to do this entire show today just to show how multi-talented I am as I'm watching the Mets game. I have the Mets game on right over here on two beautiful TVs, the Mets game on, and I'm going to watch the Mets beat the Nationals, and you and I are going to talk throughout the afternoon. Sal and Queens. Sal, you're on ESPN Radio.
What's going on, Dave? Thanks for taking my call. I call the Rothenberg and Canty and Humpty show all the time.
Right.
Figured I'd give you a call. I'm respecting the work you're doing with Stephen A. I just wanted to mention, you just mentioned you're watching the game, though, and right into my point. For Jacob deGrom, the performance he had last night, when they introduced him to Citi Field for the first time this year, I think it was about 4 or 5 minutes long of just clapping and cheering, the announcers not saying a word. I'm sure Gary Cohen and Keith Hernandez were upstanding as well. I mean, the respect that this guy has, not only with Met fans, but across the league, like it's almost like when you're facing against him, just be prepared for double-digit strikeouts. Like, I really do think he's going to have a better year than he did last year, because now he got paid, no uncertainty, full year of confidence. He's locked in. He knows he's the Cy Young winner. He's going for it again. Do you think he's going to win it again in the NL, or do you think they're going to give it to somebody else?
I mean, if he pitches
right
like
now,
this,
I think he's a gambling favorite to be this. I think it's so Max Scherzer.
the whole thing about DeGrom, and thanks for the call, Sal, the whole thing about DeGrom was he was so good last year. His ERA was 1.7. He won 10 games and still won the Cy Young. Can he possibly be better? And everyone said, no, he'll win more games, but he can't be better. Through 2 games, and I know it's very early, he's better. He is better this year than he was last year. Jacob in Tampa is on ESPN Radio. What's up, Jake?
Not too much, Dave. Thanks for taking the call.
You got it.
Long-time Cubs fan, and I completely agree with you. You can't freak out early. Usually I'm one of these guys who says you don't even want to look at the standings until the All-Star break. But when you do have your fears come to fruition in the first week, the bullpen, and in my opinion, the overrated Joe Madden, I do think there is some time there where you have to sit back and be like, well, maybe these things that you are fearing going into the season are happening, and it's happening early. So, I usually would agree with you, but there are some teams that, you can't win it in the first week, but you can definitely lose it.
Yeah, you cannot. Here's the thing, though. You cannot lose a baseball season in the first week. You can't. If you go 1-6, your season is not over.
I agree with you there.
I mean, the Red Sox were 1-5 going into the game last night. They win. They're 2-5. They're fine.
I mean, when you have a bullpen that keeps blowing games like Chicago, and there's no end in sight in fixing that, that's a real big problem.
Listen, I think you have to trust the brass in Tampa, in Chicago, and believe that they will right this ship as we move towards midway through the season. Again, they're a very talented team, and they want to win, and they spend money, and then I think they'll find a way. So, Jake, I do appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I love it. Baseball calls from all over. Let's go to James in Jersey who wants to talk about the 2-5 Boston Red Sox. James, you're on ESPN Radio.
Dave, before I get to my point about the Red Sox, whoever pays Canty should give him a raise, because that Warriors pick over the Lakers, man, that was a great one.
Yeah, very aggressive. This is what Canty will do. He goes out on limbs, and that's a limb that he went out on for the Warriors to beat the LeBron-less Lakers. Yeah.
Right. Well, let me get to my Red Sox point. I've been a Red Sox fan my whole life since I was 5 years old. Even if the Red Sox don't win another game this entire season, which is crazy, obviously, I'm comfortable with whatever they do this year, as long as the Yankees don't win. We got our championship last year. We celebrated on their field twice. It's good to be a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, but come on, you can't be thrilled with a 2-5 start.
thrilled with it, but hey, listen, it is what it is. Can't cry about it either.
No, long season. Red Sox will be fine. No worries. Red Sox fine. Yankees fine. Now, if you're a team there's if the Orioles were 1-4 or 1-5 right now, you'd say okay, they're done because you knew they were going to be awful, and then they've just kind of followed to that expectation. But with the good teams, I don't think you have anything to worry about. I really don't. Nothing to worry about at all. Let's go to Danny in Philly, and guess what he wants to talk about. What's up, Dan? You're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call there. I just want to say I'm so excited about the Philadelphia Phillies, and they regrouped and got some great players, the catcher, and, of course, Bryce Harper and the guy from
Pittsburgh. It's some kind of off-season, Danny, some kind of off-season.
Yes, it was. I'm just excited, man, and I think Stephen A. Smith a couple of days ago, I was listening to him. I just came back from Florida. He's been in San Diego for 3 weeks, and he started ragging on the basketball players about, he's sick and tired of these guys getting the salaries they get and the excuses that they make. And guys, everyday workers go out 8, 10 hours, 12 hours a day and, live paycheck to paycheck. So I was glad to hear Stephen A. Smith talk about that, too. So thanks for taking my call. Looking forward to a great season, baseball season, American League, National League season, and going to watch the ball game.
Yes, also known as baseball season, the American League, the National League. You compile the whole thing, and that is where we are with baseball season, getting ready to really kick in, right? I mean, teams are now having their home openers, and that'll be a thing of the past by the end of this week, and then we get into week 2. But the thing with baseball is, as great as it is, and it's there every day, and you love it, it is a long season. And that's the thing. You can't get too high and you can't get too low. So you watch game after game after game. And even if you're a Mets fan now or a Dodgers fan now, you say, hey, look, we got out to good starts. Or a Rays fan, we got out to a good start. It's monotonous. And it's a forever kind of a season. I mean, this year goes on basically playing 6-7 games a week for 6 full months. So can you fall apart early? You can. But I think there's something kind of cool and special about just every single day. It's always there. Let's go to Seamus in Virginia. Wants to talk about the New York Yankees. What's up, Seamus?
Hey, man, how's it going? So here's the thing. Billy Beane once said, you have 50 games to see what kind of team you have. You got 50 games to tweak it, and then you really have 62 games to compete, right? I think the problem with the Yankees is not that they've got off to a bad start or their record or anything. It's the injuries. It's all the injuries to the everyday players are starting to hit, and that compiles with the Yankees fans' frustration from this past offseason, where the Yankees sat out, bidding on free agents such as Bryce Harper or Manny Machado, who would fill 2 positions that are now empty with the injuries that have hit the team. I'm going to hang up and listen to what you got to say. Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing. I mean, you didn't want Machado and you didn't want Bryce Harper. Those were 2 guys that you just thought it was a little bit out of what you wanted to spend and the extent of the deal. And it's just bad coincidence that 4 games into the season, your star young third baseman now suffers a torn labrum, and it looks like there's a real chance that he's going to be out for the entire year. So I get it. I get the frustration there of, we could have had this. But you know what? You can't predict injuries. It's an absolute impossibility to go ahead and say, well, I think this guy's going to get hurt. So if he gets hurt, look, you're already without your starting shortstop if you're the Yankees, right? Didi Gregorius, he's out for maybe the entire season. So now you move into Troy Tulowitzki, and you figure Tulowitzki with Torres and LeMahieu are going to make up, and Andujar, that'll make up. So now Andujar is out, and now Tulowitzki is out, and now Stanton is out. Sometimes you just kind of throw your hands up and you say, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Right? That's the bottom line. 888-ESPN, 888-729-3776. But I just love having baseball here. And there's a lot that we're going to get into today. So John Morant, he's, worst kept secret. Of course, he was going to come out. He's made it official. He is now coming out. And you know what? And you're going to get a lot of this towards the draft day in late June. And that is, I wonder if a team would realistically think about not taking Zion Williamson and going with John Morant with the top overall selection. Because I'm just saying, and I love Zion, and I think he's going to be a bigger-than-life kind of player at the next level. And there's not a game that you watch him play that you don't think to yourself, he does something that I've never seen before. But I really wonder if when you just forget about the marketing and the shoes and the billion-dollar contracts and all those things, I really wonder if there are teams out there that look at it and say, you know what? If I had the top overall pick, that's a real decision I'd have to make. It's not so slam dunk. Zion, I don't think about anybody else. Is John Morant realistically involved in that conversation? All right, now when you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes. No, who would want to do that? You want an efficient way to get to a short list of qualified candidates. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes. Set up screener questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why
I'll tell you something right now. The nation's capital they've got some damn nerves. Now I know all of you out there are going to look at Bryce Harper. And you're going to sit up there and say he left them. He left them high and dry. Signed a 13-year, $330 million deal to be a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. Not only did he leave, Stephen A., but he left for a team within the same division. How the hell are they supposed to feel? That's what you're going to say. I get it. And I'd even understand it if you're a Yankee and you're going to be a Red Sox, or you're a Red Sox and you decided to go to the Yankees. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're joining an evil empire. And if that's the analogy that you want to use, so be it. But I beg to differ. And I'll tell you why. When you look at Bryce Harper and the fact that he was serenaded with booze throughout most of the night, particularly in warm-ups, particularly as he was in the batting circle waiting to come up, batting third, particularly they laughed at him. Only time that they didn't boo him was when they were cheering over the fact that Scherzer had struck him out the first go-round. Now, he got his revenge in the 8th inning when he smacked that 450-foot two-run shot. And by the way, Bryce Harper thus far is batting about 429. Batting about 429. With a slugging percentage of OPS like 1,100 plus. The man has looked absolutely sensational thus far. He's got 3 home runs. He's got about 5 or 6 RBIs. He is flat out balling and looking like an MVP candidate. Obviously, it's 162 games. Obviously, it's incredibly, incredibly early. Who the hell knows what's going to happen as the season progresses? I will remind you they gave him $330 million for a reason, though. I will remind you that the dude is only 26 years of age. I will remind you that when you look at him and what he brings to the table, you are projecting what he's going to do based on what he has done.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
For Stephen A., he will be back tomorrow. And the Stephen A. Smith Show is brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. Credit Karma, get knowing. All right, so Knicks fans are just besides themselves. Because when you're a Knicks fan, and I am a Knicks fan, you don't have a lot of optimistic viewpoints, right? And we finally are at the point where we think maybe, possibly. And then Ric Bucher comes out with the Kevin Durant free agency news. And let me read it to you, and then we can kind of chew on this for a minute. He says, from everything I've heard, it's done. Yes, he's leaving. If he so much as gets the Knicks into the conference finals, he will be beloved there like he's never been at Golden State after getting 2 championships. And you know what? That's 100% right. I mean, it could not be more accurate. An 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I mean, just think about it. Because the Knicks right now, and let's be fair, are one of, if not the laughing stocks of the NBA. They are. They've been a poorly run team for a very long time. They throw good money after bad at trying to, turn the franchise around, and they're just incapable of doing it. Now, they finally have gotten to the situation where you look at it and you say, maybe, possibly, it's turning around in our advantage. How? Well, you unloaded Kristaps Porzingis, which is a move that I did not love and still don't absolutely adore, but you did that, you cleared up cap space, fine. You moved Tim Hardaway, cap space, fine. Worst record in the NBA, that's going to happen. Gives you a 14% chance you can get no worse than the 5th overall selection. Then you take a deep breath, and you realize there's a good chance we're going to get a major star player here. I mean, an elite star player. That's one. Two is, does Durant come here? Because to me, that defines everything here. If Kevin Durant chooses the Knicks, then everything that the Knicks fan has endured and been through, and Jeremy Lin and not bringing him back, and Jeff Van Gundy and lying on Alonzo Mourning's leg, and all of the things that the Knicks fan, the poor Knicks fan, because this fan base has had it as bad as any fan base in any sport for the last 20 years, and I include the Cleveland Browns in this conversation. If somehow Kevin Durant, this is all it takes, and you've heard a lot of people say, I mean, Bill Simmons said it, that this is going to happen. That this thing gets done, and Kevin Durant says, you know what? I want to go to the Knicks, and that's what you see all over the place right now. Ric Bucher says Kevin Durant to the Knicks is a done deal. So if there's ever anything that's going to go from his lips to God's ears, let that be the one. Because even if you're not New York, you have to understand, the Knicks fan loves this team. And they have been the laughingstock in the NBA for a really long time. And you finally look at it and say, there's a legitimate chance. You could go, what do they have, 15 wins right now? 5 more games, 15 wins? You really could go 55 wins next year. If you're able to get one of the big kids in the draft, and you get Durant, and you figure that's packaged with Kyrie Irving. Teams don't go from dreadful, laughingstock, embarrassing to great like that. Maybe they could. Maybe there's a possibility that the Knicks would actually finally step in it, and this could work out. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Now, here's the thing. Because Durant's career is kind of shaped in a couple of different areas. Number one was his OKC days. And he was great, and he was a scorer, and he was a wonderful player. But in the end, I mean, let's be fair. He was incapable of ultimately getting it done. Then he goes to Golden State, and let's be fair. There's a lot of people that learn of him going to Golden State and think, you know what? It's weak-minded. It's very easy to join a team that is just so good. So he's going to go join a team which is 73 wins and a Draymond Green suspension away from winning a championship, and he's going to join that, and he does, and he pushes them over the top. But I guess the question is that, and he could retire tomorrow, and he's had one of the great NBA careers that we've seen. But you know what else? He has a chance to do something that not a lot have a chance to do, and that is come to New York, play for the Knicks, and lead them to victories, and lead them to, ultimately, the championship. And that does not happen. No one has done that. I mean, literally, the Knicks have not won a championship in my lifetime. 1973 is the last time. 1970 is the time before that. The game has completely changed. And there were times in the 90s where the Knicks were a team, and you looked at them and say, you know what? With Patrick Ewing and Oakley and Mason and Starks, they're a good basketball team, but they could never get over the hump. And I don't even know if the Knicks fan needs the title right now. They need hope. And that in lies what Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and maybe Zion present to the Knicks is hope. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. And wouldn't it be good, even if I don't care who you root for. You root for Milwaukee, you root for the Celtics, you root for the Hawks, you root for the Lakers, you root for whoever you root for. Tell me that the NBA is not better, is not bigger, doesn't have just a bigger feel in general when the Knicks are at least somewhat relevant. Guys are desperate to go to New York and perform on this enormous stage when the Knicks are 11-39. Could you imagine the attraction for other players if the Knicks were actually a team that was capable of doing anything and winning games? Now, God help me. Because you're a Knicks fan, and this is what runs through your mind. You'll get the 5th pick, you'll wind up with Bol Bol, You'll wind up with Jimmy Butler, and you'll wind up with Chris Middleton. And that will be the result of this horrendous season. But maybe, just maybe, it won't be. Maybe, just maybe, for once, you get Zion. And I got to be honest, I love Zion. He's the guy. I think he's sensational. But if you told me right now, like if you locked it into me right now, Dave, let's make a deal. Remember that show, Let's Make a Deal? I might be dating myself, but Let's Make a Deal with Monty Hall. And it was on even recently on CBS. Let's make a deal. And they would say, here's the thing. You can have this, or you can hold off for another. If the NBA gods came to me right now and said, we will offer you Ja Morant, you will not get Zion, would you take that right now? My answer would be 100% yes. So if I could wind up with either Morant or Williamson, couple that together with the available free agents out there in the NBA, got to be Kevin Durant, potentially Kyrie. Durant's the big fish. If you get Durant and Middleton or Durant and Walker, I could live with it. But if you get that and you're the Knicks, I think immediately you're relevant. Immediately. Dan in Kansas City. Dan is on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Dave Rothenberg sitting in. What's up, Danny?
Hey, Dave. How you doing? Big Royals fan. I'm sorry, about 4 years ago. I know you're a big Mets fan, and I know the Royals beat them 4 years ago. But here's my point. Do you think with James Dolan on the team, any free agents could come things like Kevin Durant?
I mean, listen, James Dolan almost as much as said on an interview in the New York studios with Michael Kay in that show that he believes that they're going to wind up there. Ric Bucher is now saying Durant to the Knicks, done deal. I don't know, and we've been fooled before, but do I think that there's a real chance that he winds up with the Knicks? I'm sure hopeful. Dan. I'd like to believe it, yeah.
I picked the Celtics to be the team out of the East. Is there a possible way they can still win the East?
Wait, you're talking about this year? Can the Celtics win the East?
Oh, yeah, this year.
Of course they can. I mean, listen, they were Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals last year without Kyrie Irving. So, yeah, thanks for the call, Dan. Of course they can. I don't think they will. I think Milwaukee's the best team. I don't trust Philly. I believe in Boston. Milwaukee, to me, is the best, and Indiana would be there if they were not hurt, and Toronto's kind of that wild card. So right now, the East, to me, I would go Milwaukee, Boston, Toronto tied for 2-3, then Philly, then Indiana. Let's go to Donovan in Virginia Beach. Donovan, you're on ESPN Radio. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? Hey, I got a question. Mm-hmm. Do you think Kevin Durant bringing a championship to the Knicks would be greater than LeBron James to the Cavs? Now, I understand the Cavaliers, you know what I'm saying, the city of Cleveland having a championship for 50-plus years, but do you think just because of the media hype, it'll be greater than, you know what I'm saying, if he brought a championship to the Knicks?
I understand your question, and I don't think it's far off, but I would say no. I would say no. Because you got to remember, LeBron was born and bred there. LeBron changed the financial structure of that city. They're looked at as and let's be honest, like the biggest loser city in all of sports. So I would say no, but it might be a very close second to what LeBron was able to succeed and get done in Cleveland. I really do believe that. Thanks for the call, Donovan. I really do. I mean, if you can bring a championship to the Knicks, the fans are starved for success. But I tell you, and this is the thing that's so frustrating as a fan, especially of a team that seems to make more mistakes than they don't. If you wind up with Kemba Walker and Chris Middleton and Bol, this magical idea that we have sitting here today goes completely out the window. Now, the NBA is on ESPN Radio. Tune in tonight as future Knick Kevin Durant, but current Warriors and his teammates visit the Lakers, presented by Indeed. Coverage begins at 10 o'clock Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. We will continue with their calls. You will do that next. And then we're going to start to break down the NBA draft, knowing that Ja Morant is in. Where will he go? We'll get into that top of the 2 o'clock Eastern hour. So a lot to do. Phone number 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Rothenberg in for Stephen A. ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
This show and all of ESPN is streaming live on the ESPN app. Now with ESPN Plus, where you get more ESPN. Download the ESPN app today and take ESPN everywhere.
Need game tickets? Find your seats at Vivid Seats. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Okay. On a Thursday, just to let you know, Mets down 1-0, end of 2. Day baseball. I can concentrate on a lot of different things. We're going to get into the NBA draft starting in the 2 o'clock Eastern hour. A lot of people want to chat about things going on in the world of sports. NFL draft is 3 weeks from today. Kuiper and McShay had their dueling mock drafts come out yesterday. Nick Bosa has been on top of the NFL draft as the number 1 ranked player. Now, Murray might go 1, but Bosa has been the number 1 ranked player the entire way through. Very unusual. ESPN Radio presented by Progressive Insurance, protecting commercial vehicles and offering specialized coverages designed to protect your business. More at progressiveCommercial.com. Let's go to Eloy in Houston because I do appreciate the name Eloy. Eloy, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, how you doing, Dave?
Good. What's going on, bud?
Hey, I just want to say I've been trying to call in for about 3 or 4 days. In a day I didn't get Stephen A. Smith, but that's okay. I just wanted to talk real briefly about this MVP race. You got, obviously, James Harden, Giannis, and there's a lot of talk. Just wanted to point out a couple things, get your feedback on the race, and kind of see where you stand on that. I'm just curious as to how this is really even a discussion. When I look at the numbers, right, and granted, I may be a little biased from Houston. However, some of the things that James Harden is doing is just, I mean, he's making history, granted, like weekly. The second, when you look at some of the defensive numbers that he has, first in deflections, tied for first in steals, pending the day, first in low post percentage as far as defending the post.
Right. I would say, though, Eloy, anything that you're going to bring to the table that's going to work as a positive for James Harden, defensively, I'm just not going to get on board with. I mean, is he able to poke a ball away? Yeah. Is he capable of defending a little bit? Sure. He's not a plus defender. You want to talk about who the better defender of those two guys is, and it's not even open for discussion. It's Giannis, and it's Giannis by 10 miles.
About the MVP discussion, right? Harden has been crucified over the last 5 years for not playing any defense whatsoever.
He doesn't.
When you look at,
he's not a. I mean, come on, you're reaching. When you watch it, the eye test, Eloy, and I actually agree with you. If I had a vote, I would give it to Harden over Giannis. But you're going to sit here and defend the lack of defense that James Harden plays?
Last year with that level of defense, and then you look at it this year, and he's improved drastically by leading the league in deflections, being tied for first or is thrown out the window.
I do not agree with you, and thank you for the phone call. I do not look at James Harden as a plus defender. I mean, is he able to get by? Sure. But if you're going to take the analytics, I mean, what happened to just using your eyes and saying, this guy's really capable of playing defense. Giannis is really capable of playing defense. There are certain guys that are just excellent defenders. And when you come with all these stats and numbers and analytics, well, he's 0.47 in the defensive metrics. I don't care. I watched him play. He's a lousy defender. Now, all that being said, do I think he's the most valuable player? I do. I firmly believe that James Harden is the most valuable player in this league. I would go 1 with him, and then I would go 2 with Giannis. And anybody else is not even really in the conversation. Let's go to Ron in Pennsylvania. Ron, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Good, Ron.
Do you think the New York Football Giants will draft a quarterback at number 6?
No. I would desperately want them to. I do not think they will. And to answer this question, Ron, I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea what they're doing. Absolutely no comprehension of what this organization is doing right now.
I agree. I've been a Giant fan for over 30 years, and I'm just lost. With all the dead money we have and giving up Odell Beckham, I am totally lost at what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Giants fans feel that way. And thanks for the phone call. And Gettleman and the brass and the Mara contingent will sit here and tell you over and over and over, there's a plan in place. Don't worry. We know what we're doing. There's nothing to worry about. And just trust us. Well, you know what? 6 of the last 7 seasons, this organization has been on the outside looking in of the postseason. And the one time they got in, they got clobbered by the Packers. So you tell me. All right, John Morant is out. Zion will probably be next. R.J. Barrett as well. Mike Schmitz. All the NBA draft coverage that we need will join us in just moments from here on ESPN. Rothenberg in for Stephen A. Little NBA draft coverage next on ESPN Radio.
The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
Rothenberg in for Stephen A. Smith. A lot to do. Get into a little mock drafting. We know that John Morant has now officially said he is coming into the NBA, and he is sensational, wasn't he? I mean, just sensational. Even in that loss against Florida State, he was really, really remarkable. Now, the Stephen A. Smith Show brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics, and, of course, do that today. But here's some of the names that I'm going to read to you, and Mike Schmitz is going to join us from just a moment, and he might even be here. We can bring him on. I just want to read you like the first 10 guys of who he has on this new mock draft list, which is just out like 10 days ago. Zion 1, R.J. Barrett 2, John Morant 3, Darius Garland. And unless you're a huge college basketball fan, you hear the name Darius Garland and say, who exactly is that? So Garland, point guard from Vanderbilt, 6'3" freshman. I think he's big time potential. DeAndre Hunter, who you can see this Final Four on Saturday, from Virginia, would go 5. Cam Reddish, 6. So Cam, who we thought maybe they'd go 1, 2, 3, all of a sudden Cam has dropped down to 6. 7 would be Jarrett Culver, the kid out of Texas Tech who had a really good game in the Elite Eight and played really well against Michigan the round prior. So Culver is 7. I can't even do this name justice. Sekou Doumbouya, I'll say. Could be completely wrong. He's from over in France. Jackson Hayes, who has the wingspan of like 3 people. Big kid from Texas. And then Romeo Langford, the small forward from Indiana, who spent the 1 year there and is now ready to dip his toe into the NBA waters. All right, let's bring him in. Mike Schmitz, ESPN NBA draft analyst, also scouts the European players, so I can ask you anything as far as any of these guys. Mike, we appreciate a couple minutes here on ESPN Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, so here's my question, because I've heard rumblings of this. In your mind, is Zion locked in 100% as the top overall selection, or is there any chance, any modicum of a chance, that John Morant moves up and could potentially be the number 1 pick in the draft?
No chance. I love John Morant as much as the next guy. I think he's a star in the NBA for a long time, but Zion Williamson's locked up the number 1 pick. He's clearly a transcendent type of talent. I think a generational prospect and a perfect fit in today's NBA. So I think you can call it game over with him. Come June, he's going to go number 1.
All right, so he's your 1. That's locked in. Don't even discuss anybody else. Fine. Let's move on. Do you look at him as a generational player? Like, you've heard so much that this is a can't-miss product. He's going to put up big numbers. He's going to transform any team he goes to. Do you agree with that you get Zion and your team does a complete 180?
Yes, I think he's a franchise changer from day one. And he does it in a variety of ways. I mean, he's not your traditional star prospect. Like, this guy plays harder than any number 1 prospect I've ever seen. Like, his motor is incredible. He guards all 5 positions. He's a much better ball handler and shot creator than I think he was able to show at Duke, just because they didn't have all that much shooting around him. his ability to make his teammates better. I think he has a star quality about him. We saw it time and time again this season. He rose to the occasion over and over. So he would be my number 2 prospect. But I think people are nitpicking R.J. Barrett a little bit. I mean, he came into the season as our number 1 prospect. He was a number 1 player in his high school class. He's been successful for the Canadian national team. He's an absolute alpha, and the guy averaged 22, 7, and 4. So I think he's going to be in the mix for that number 2 pick. There's no question about it. But if the draft were today and I had that pick, I would give the slight edge to Ja Morant.
And then Barrett is clearly the 3rd guy off your board?
Yes, I think Barrett is clearly number 3. And, I think the way people are looking at this is there's a really strong top 3 in terms of Zion, Ja, and RJ, however you want to order them. And then after that, it's pretty wide open. I think it could be a variety of guys who come in and steal that number 4 spot, whether it is Jarrett Culver or Darius Garland or even Cam Reddish, impressing scouts in the pre-draft process. So I think the top 3 is pretty strong, and then that 4 spot is fairly wide open.
How many real stars do you look at in this draft and say, yep, Zion obviously, sounds like Morant, maybe Barrett. Does it stop there? I mean, could a Garland, could a Hunter, could Cam Reddish, Culver, the name I can't pronounce from Limoges? I mean, where do we stop as far as potential star power in this draft?
Yeah, I see 3 stars. I see Zion, I see Ja, and I see RJ. And then you have, some guys with the potential to be that. I think Jarrett Culver has had a fantastic season for Texas Tech. I mean, he's led them in points, rebounds, assists. He really does everything for them. And then, DeAndre Hunter has been really good as well. But I think those guys are high-level NBA starters, with all-star potential. But I think the guys with real star potential are those top 3. And then, Garland is a name that I think is going to be interesting as well. We obviously didn't see much of him with the injury at Vanderbilt, but at the high school level, he was extremely impressive. He's one of these quick twitch guys who can get his own shot off the bounce. He can really, really shoot it. So I'm interested to see what he looks like once he gets fully healthy, because I think he could potentially be that 4th name that does have some star potential behind the other 3.
Oh, no, I can't say the name appropriately, so you're going to have to walk me through it. Is it Sekou Doumbouya? Doumbouya? How do I say this?
That's pretty good. And the fact that you said Limoges that smoothly is impressive. Yeah, Sekou Doumbouya.
Sekou Doumbouya from Limoges. So I have it down. You've helped me. I appreciate that. He's the top-ranked European player on your board here. Tell us about him. How good is he, and is he a top 10 pick this year?
Yeah, I think you're looking at him anywhere from that 8 to 14 range. He's been a highly touted prospect in France really since he was 15 years old. He's 6'9", 6'11" wingspan, really versatile, defends multiple positions. When he's playing with energy and shooting the ball well from 3, he really, really looks the part of a top 10 pick. Kind of in that Al-Farouq Aminu is kind of a comp I've used for him. Just in terms of a versatile guy who can guard multiple positions and make an open 3. Doesn't have the best feel for the game, but yeah, he's clearly the top international prospect in this draft. And then the other name that I think could rival that in terms of international is Goga Bitadze, the 6'11" Georgian center. Can shoot it from 3, can score on the post, has a nice feel for the game. So those are probably the 2 lock first-round picks when you're talking about international prospects.
All right. We like guys from major schools, and we have a couple of those. One that came out, I didn't even know much about him, to be honest, coming into Carolina. But Kobe White had a sensational freshman season. Now he's projected in that 10, 11, 12 range. Do you see him being a big-time starting point guard at the next level?
I do. He's really surprised me. A year ago at this time, we were all watching him at the McDonald's All-American practice and game, and he didn't look like a surefire one-and-done prospect. And then he came out and just kind of lit the ACC on fire with his frenetic style and his pace. He can shoot it with range. He's really improved as an on-ball guy in terms of making others better. So I think he's going to go, potentially in the top 10, and he still has some things to improve. He doesn't have great length. He's still improving as a facilitator, but I think he looks the part of an NBA starting point guard, especially in a system that plays up tempo, shoots a lot of threes. That really favors his style.
Hachimura, the kid out of Gonzaga, who had a really good tournament. I had seen him up higher with mocks that I had seen recently. You have him down in the 16 range. Has he fallen, or were people too high on him?
No, I don't think he's fallen. I mean, he is a really aggressive scorer. He's kind of likes to operate in those mid-range areas. So that's the biggest question for him is, is he going to be able to extend it to 3 at the NBA level? And is his feel for the game going to improve just because he's not a guy who really makes others better on the offensive end of the floor? He came late to basketball, so there are some things that just didn't come all that naturally to him. So I think he's still evolving there, but he's going to get looks in that back-end lottery just when you look at his physical profile. I mean, he's 6'8". He's got an NBA body. He's got a 7'2" wingspan. And, again, he's a really, really aggressive scorer. So I think, before it's all said and done, he's going to get looks in that late lottery range.
Mike Schmitz, ESPN NBA draft analyst, helping us break down the draft and the lottery and guys that are starting to commit to the draft here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Dave Rothenberg, sitting in on a Thursday. One more I want to ask you about, and I know his dad was such kind of a sideshow, and that was Manute Bol, and now Bol, who only played a couple of games at Oregon this year, but he can really play. He's not just a tall man.
He can really play.
Yeah.
He can stretch it to 3. He can handle as well as any 7'2", 7'3" guy you'll see. He has a feel for the game. He can protect the rim. Motor has been the question with him in the past, and then just durability. I think when you're 7'3" in today's game, with the pace and the tempo, you wonder how, easily it's going to be for him to make it through 82-game season after 82-game season, had the foot injury. So he's one of the more intriguing, prospects and storylines in this draft, just in terms of a guy who's currently injured, but really has top 5 upside when you look at this group. You're going through the list of potential stars earlier, and we kind of capped it at 3, but a healthy Bol is a guy who at least has the upside to enter that conversation. It's just a matter of, what is the medical going to say? And then in terms of, him buying into playing hard all the time, those are the questions for him.
One more for you. Cam Reddish, the thought was that he could potentially go 3 to start the year, and you could have Duke go 1, 2, 3, and then John Morant got in there. Now other guys have snuck in there. Have the scouts, have the NBA teams been disappointed with Cam Reddish? Because he's not even a top 5 pick at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he had a tough end of the season. He struggled in the tournament. He missed the one game with tendonitis in his knee, and I think people are just trying to figure out, how tough and consistent he's going to be at the NBA level. Is he going to be an everyday guy? But I think the pre-draft process is going to be really good for him just because he's 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan, and he can really shoot the ball. I think he's going to look great in workouts, and it wouldn't shock me one bit if he ends up going as high as 4 when June rolls around just because of, his physical profile and skill set.
But just to recap, Zion is a man-child in the 2019 draft, isn't he?
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this kid. He's the most intriguing prospect I've ever evaluated. I think has a chance to go down as maybe the best prospect I've ever evaluated. I think he just fits perfectly in terms of what teams are trying to do nowadays. You can play him at 4, you can play him at 5, you can switch him. He protects the rim, he rebounds everything. He's an absolute monster and a superstar for a long time.
All right, Mike, I appreciate a couple minutes. Thanks for joining us. Continued success with all these great mock drafts that you're going to have coming out. We'll read them, and we'll certainly talk to you down the road. Good stuff, man.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, that is Mike Schmitz, not the former third baseman, the NBA draft analyst, joining us here on ESPN Radio. Now, ESPN Radio presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and your car insurance. Let's look at the NBA a little bit. I mean, when you look at because we're down to a week left of the regular season, Milwaukee's going to have home court throughout. That is done. They will have home court throughout. Game 7 will take place in Milwaukee. What else do we have? Toronto's going to be the 2 seed in the East. Philadelphia, who I do not trust at all, looks like they'll be the 3. And then you'll have Boston and Indiana as the 4-5 in one way or another. Right? Boston, Indiana, same record now. So depending on who winds up with a better record, that will fall to Boston or Indiana. Again, I don't trust Philly to save my life. And I think the main reason I don't trust Philadelphia is I don't trust Ben Simmons. I don't trust a guy that's incapable, in my mind, of shooting the ball. And if I was a fan of the Philadelphia 76ers, it would drive me insane because he is so talented and causes such a matchup nightmare. And then when you really look at it, he can't shoot. And it's not like he's 18 years old, just coming into the league and just didn't figure out how to be able to shoot. He can't shoot. He's incapable of shooting the basketball. And if I'm an opposing team, I'm gonna play 4-on-5. I'm going to let him roam around 18, 20, 22 feet, drop off, kind of play his zone, and let him do his thing. Because I just don't trust him. And then the back end of the Eastern Conference, you got Detroit, Brooklyn, Orlando, and Miami, all fighting for spots like 7 through 10 there. The West, Golden State beats up on Denver. Denver's now 2 games in the loss behind Golden State. So you got to figure that Golden State's going to get the top overall seeding in the Western Conference. After that, it'll go to Denver. Maybe Houston, though, right? Houston 2 games behind where Denver is right now. Portland is also right there. Utah is, from 3 through 5, you're separated by 2 games in the loss column. Houston is 51-28. Portland is 50-28. Utah is 48-30. And then you come to the Clippers in the 6, and they're 47-32. Oklahoma City in the 7, they're 45-33. And San Antonio is in the 8. They're 45-34. So we know the teams. We just don't exactly know the order of those teams. But I'll tell you what. If you're an NBA fan, I would have to think that you look at this thing and you say, give me Golden State and OKC in the first round. Right? Isn't that the ideal? Give me Golden State and OKC in the first round. Because that way I could see Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams, and look, they're not going to beat them. Nobody's going to beat them. They're going to roll to another championship, and we're all going to act like we're completely surprised. And, oh, my God, how did this happen again? But at least give me a legitimate competitive matchup. And I think that Golden State against Oklahoma City would potentially give you that. So you heard it. Mike Schmitz joins us, tells us Zion, Zion, Zion. If you're going to play the game of maybe John Morant, you're playing, you're playing the wrong game. You're playing the wrong game because Zion Williamson is the number 1 pick in this draft. Let's take a call on Zion and go to Ethan in Kentucky. Ethan, you're on ESPN Radio.
So, yes, I understand that Zion Williamson said that he does not want to just strictly enter the draft. He said that he wants to stay all 4 years in college before he enters the draft. What's your take on that?
That's ridiculous. He's going to come into the draft this year. I mean, guys just don't give up. Do you understand the amount of money that you give up if you're Zion Williamson and you stay in college now? You give up tens of 20s of 50s of hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's impractical to think.
Or 4.
Exactly. You wouldn't do it. Everyone around you would laugh at you if you did that. He's going to be here's the thing. I get it. Duke is great. Coach K is sensational. It's an incredible atmosphere. He's forced to play there 1 year. And I know the narrative is that the university gets everything out of the kid and the kid gets nothing out of the university, which I actually, in some regard, disagree with. And I'll tell you why. Because Zion Williamson was a household name coming into college. Zion Williamson was not the greatest thing we've ever seen. He is so far and ahead of what we thought. The shoe blows out. His shoe deal is going to be worth $1 trillion. He's going to sell more of these shoes than you can possibly imagine. He is the surefire number 1 pick. If you would have drafted with these kids coming out of high school, he wouldn't have been the number 1 pick. He wouldn't. R.J. Barrett would have been the number 1 pick. So you can say what you want, but Zion Williamson has gotten a lot from this 1 year at Duke. A lot from this 1 year at Duke. And rightfully so. I mean, he deserves a lot. He's a great player. He's a great kid. He's a great teammate. He wants to win. And here's the thing, and this just shows you the greatness of what he's capable of doing. Every single game that you watch that Zion plays in, he does something that makes you say either A, I've never seen anything like that before, or B, it takes your breath away. Every single time. I remember the time that he's playing Virginia and he jumped 18 feet and blocked the shot into the corner. The time in this most recent game where there's an alley-oop and he went to block a shot and his head almost hit the bottom of the backboard and he had to duck below that. The alley-oop a couple games ago was unbelievable. He does things that when you watch him play, you can honestly say, I've never seen anything like that before. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Now, gentlemen, stop lounging around. Be active. Take your girl out. Go to a game. Go to a concert. Get tickets to something. Plus, the NBA playoff season is almost here. I mean, we just ran through it. And the time is now to jump on those tickets. For all...
Now, I'll tell you something right now. The nation's capital, they've got some damn nerves. Now, I know all of you out there are going to look at Bryce Harper. And you're going to sit up there and say he left them. He left them high and dry. Signed a 13-year, $330 million deal to be a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. Not only did he leave, Stephen A., but he left for a team within the same division. How the hell are they supposed to feel? That's what you're going to say. I get it. And I'd even understand it if you're a Yankee and you're going to be a Red Sox, or you're a Red Sox and you decided to go to the Yankees. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're joining an evil empire. And if that's the analogy that you want to use, so be it. But I beg to differ. And I'll tell you why. When you look at Bryce Harper and the fact that he was serenaded with booze throughout most of the night, particularly in warm-ups, particularly as he was in the batting circle waiting to come up, batting third, particularly they laughed at him. Only time that they didn't boo him was when they were cheering over the fact that Scherzer had struck him out the first go-round. Now, he got his revenge in the 8th inning when he smacked that 450-foot two-run shot. And by the way, Bryce Harper thus far is batting about 429. Batting about 429. With a slugging percentage of OPS like 1,100 plus. The man has looked absolutely sensational thus far. He's got 3 home runs. He's got about 5 or 6 RBIs. He is flat out balling and looking like an MVP candidate. Obviously, it's 162 games. Obviously, it's incredibly, incredibly early. Who the hell knows what's going to happen as the season progresses? I will remind you they gave him $330 million for a reason, though. I will remind you that the dude is only 26 years of age. I will remind you that when you look at him and what he brings to the table, you are projecting what he's going to do based on what he has done.
Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. will be back tomorrow, but we roll along today. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Stephen A. Smith Show brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. Credit Karma, get knowing. So I want to get to your calls at 888-729-3776. But this Russell Wilson story, and it just continues to get legs and legs and legs. And people say, would they trade Russell Wilson? There is no way that the Seahawks are going to move on from Russell Wilson. I don't care if Russell Wilson says, I'm not playing for you. Well, too bad. No, it's not gotten to that point. And it's strange the timing right before the NFL draft. And the only thing you could think of is that he's telling them, look, I want to go. You better look for your next quarterback. But there's no way. What am I doing? If I'm the brass with Seattle, you'll play this year. I'll franchise you again. I'll franchise you again. And at that point, maybe, possibly, I'll move on from you. And if I'm a team that's a needy quarterback situation, honestly, if I'm the Giants, if I'm the Dolphins, thinking of teams that just are in abysmal quarterback shape, I would trade anything to get him. And I really mean that. If they came to the Giants and said, we need 4 number ones, you know what? I'd give you 6 this year. I'd give you 17 this year. I'd give you next year's 1. And I'd give you following year 1. I now get a star quarterback in the prime of his career for 8 years. My entire team is legitimate now. Forget about this. I'm not going to go to the playoffs and I'm going to have to build it through the draft. It changes on a dime. Same thing with the Dolphins. Now, I don't think it happens. I would say the likelihood of Russell Wilson moving on from Seattle is less than 1%. But I guess he can try to make this situation sticky. And I guess he can try to make the situation difficult. And you hear maybe that his wife is pulling on the strings saying, I don't want my music career to continue in Seattle. I want to go to New York. I want to go to L.A. Well, if you're the Giants, at a minimum, you kick the tires on that, right? What do you want for him? Could you imagine? I mean, we've had star players usually don't get dealt. Star quarterbacks don't get dealt. But look at where we are right now. Odell Beckham, star player, larger than life, big. I mean, celebrities meet Odell and they drop to their knees. They can't believe what a big star he is, right? Traded. Josh Rosen, 1 year, top 10 pick, quarterback. It's going to be traded. They're going to take another. Like, we are seeing things that we don't even see in the world of sports. Russell Wilson, prime of his career, says, I want a new deal. And what's that deadline? April 15th, I think it is, right? So he wants a new deal by April the 15th? Big demands. I don't know if they're going to meet those demands. But he'll be the Seattle quarterback for an extended period of time. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Let's go to Paul in Louisiana. Paul, you're on ESPN Radio, my friend.
Hey, how y'all doing today, gentlemen? Thank y'all for taking my call.
You got it, Paul.
All right. 3 quick points that I hear every day that everyone's speaking blasphemy and disrespect about. This is my opinion.
All right, what's the matter?
I think Zion gonna be a bust.
A bust.
In the pros. The reason a bust. Because check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And Big Nasty Cortez Williamson, he was a decent college for Arkansas. He was a bust. I believe Scotty Thurman should have got drafted. He's a great shooter. Antoine Jameson and Vince Carter. Antoine Jameson was a beast. Everybody overlooked Vince Carter. When they came to the pros, Jameson was a bust. Carter was the guy. Carter just didn't pick his shooting game up. I see that happening with Zion and about 1 or 2 players over there in Duke. And I'm not a Duke fan.
Well, yeah, but it has nothing to do with you being a Duke fan. Paul, you could be Mike Krzyzewski's third cousin. It's nothing to do with you being a Duke fan. How do you look at Zion Williamson and say that A, you've ever seen anything like him before, and B, that he's going to be a bust? He is going to be a star among stars.
I'm not impressed.
What are you not impressed with? The fact that he can go around anybody like they're standing still and put it in like you've never seen before? Is it the fact that he defends? Is it the fact that he's 6'7", 280? He'd be the second biggest player in the NBA right now, and he moves faster than anything you've ever seen. What doesn't impress you about Zion, Paul?
Everything about his game.
Paul, how is this humanly possible? You know what? Thank God that you are not on the college recruiting tour. And that you're not going town to town to town looking for the best and brightest college players. So, Paul, let me ask you this then. Who impresses you? In Paul in Louisiana's expert mind, analyzing college basketball and the players that will be available in this draft, who impresses you?
That's a good question. Zion is not one of them.
I know we've established the fact that Zion is not one of them. But who would those guys be?
I like that. The 2 guys. You had Harper and what's his name, Bryson Brown.
From Auburn. You like the kids from Auburn? Well, I'll tell you what.
Yes.
You get you get a job as a GM in the league, and thanks for the call, Paul. You get a job as a GM in the league, and you go number 1, and you take Brown, the kid from Auburn, and I will go 2, and I'll take Zion. And then you and I will be like Sam Bowie and Michael Jordan for the next 40 years. We'll be intertwined, and every time they laugh, remember that fool Paul from Louisiana who didn't want Zion? They'll look at, hey, remember the kid Dave from Connecticut that did? Yeah, I'll be that guy. Jess in North Carolina. Jess, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, first off, I wanted to start by saying I appreciate all the work that y'all do, keeping us being supplied on the radio with information. I drive a truck, and I rely on it to get through the day. But I wanted to kind of start off by talking about Kobe White. Well, not really talked about him, but I'm going to try to get through this as quick as I can with my nerves.
Are you feeling nervous, Kobe Jess?
White, yeah, a little bit.
Don't be nervous.
I've been trying to call for a couple of weeks, but trying not to think about it. But Kobe White, I'm a North Carolina fan, and I think Kobe White's an excellent college player. I don't really feel that he's ready to go for the draft, but I know these kids are leaving college, because they need to get out and make some money, and the NCAA is kind of stuck in their traditions of not letting these kids be marketed and not letting them get paid. So that's going to end up causing the NBA to change their rule, letting kids come straight out of high school, which is going to drastically affect college basketball, in my opinion. And I wanted to see what you thought about that, because I think they should at least be able to, be marketed and pick up endorsements and things like that, not necessarily them get, a salary from their school.
Ideally, Jess, the perfect situation would be that they could come in from high school straight into the NBA. And thanks for the phone call. And you shouldn't have been nervous. You were great. That's the ideal, but that's unrealistic at this moment. So you go, you if you want to say you get an education or however you want to consider it, you get the experience, you learn from a good coach, you move forward, you improve your stock, you improve your game, and then you get drafted high. And the one thing that I will say, and everyone's, Zion Williamson is being taken advantage of, and he wouldn't be the same player, and the whole 9 yards about it. Zion has gotten a lot out of this year. First of all, he played for one of the great coaches in the history of basketball, period, in Mike Krzyzewski. He went to Duke. He experienced a team and a unified university around that basketball team, which otherwise he wouldn't have. And let's be honest, guys. A year ago from right now, if I had said Zion Williamson to you, he was not LeBron James. It was not he's surefire number one. If you would have drafted it, if they came straight out of high school, R.J. Barrett would have gone 1. I don't know who goes 2, but I can guarantee you that it would not be Zion 1. So he did get a lot at Duke, and he is a great player, and he's going to be a star at the next level. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Let's go to King in Delaware. King, you're on ESPN Radio.
Good afternoon, brother. How you feeling today?
I'm good.
All right, I got a question for you. If you Magic in the Lakers and you somehow get the first pick, and New Orleans calls you and says, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you Anthony Davis, but I want the first pick, and I want Lonzo Ball and say, I don't know, Brandon Ingram. Would you make that trade?
It's funny that you mention this because I do a show Monday to Friday out of New York, and we have the discussion all the time. How about if the Knicks got the first pick and drafted Zion, and then the offer was, we'll give you Anthony Davis, you give us Zion. Boy, see, here's the thing. Are you closer to winning a championship with LeBron James with Zion or with Anthony Davis? And I think the answer is probably Anthony Davis. I mean, Zion, I think, is going to be a star. Anthony Davis is a star. Anthony Davis makes you monumentally better immediately. So I'm torn on that, King, and I think it's an excellent question. But if I'm in win now mode, if I have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Zion, or Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Anthony Davis, and I want to win now, I would probably go with Anthony Davis.
That's what it depends on with me. If I knew for sure I was getting Kyrie Irving, that would be the time that I would take Zion Williams, because he would be cool, stepping in, playing off the ball, doing the little things, keeping the crowd excited, doing the little things you need to push forward. With Andy Davis, I think he's going to fall into the Chris Bosh category.
No.
Where he's sitting back.
No.
Kyrie Irving.
No, Anthony
LeBron,
Davis is a star. If you put Anthony Davis in the Chris Bosh category, you're making a monumental mistake. I would not agree with that. Thanks for the call. I would not agree with that at all. I think that Anthony Davis is a star player. All right, you know what never goes out of style? Surprising a friend or a loved one with buy one, get one free multicolored rose bouquets for simply $29.99 from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order, all you have to do is go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. We'll get to more of your calls. Rothenberg in for Stephen A. Stephen A. back tomorrow. I'll be back next week, though. We'll do this again next Wednesday. You need seats to a game? Download the Vivid Seats app and enter promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off of your first order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. So, people are very excited about Milwaukee. We'll get to your calls in a moment. 888-729-3776. People are very excited. Milwaukee, they have a real chance. Home court. Denver. Look, Denver's had a good season. Oklahoma City can get in their way. I will take Golden State against the field every single day. Don't you realize that nothing really motivates this team during the regular season? Like the other night, they're like, you know what? We want home court. We'll go out. We'll beat Denver. Otherwise, they're going through the motions. They're capable of doing anything. They're capable of just of beating teams by 20, 30, 40 if they really need to. And when we get to the postseason, they really need to. And they will. I mean, honestly, how about this as a bet? Would you say it is more or less likely that they see a Game 7? They saw it last year against Houston. I would almost guarantee you that this team doesn't even see a Game 7 in the postseason this year. They're so far ahead of everybody else. And I know there's a lot of people that love it and say we have this dynasty, this brilliant team. They're so sensational. And there's a lot of people that don't, that feel like, all right, you know what? I'm ready for a new team to win. I'll tell you what. I'll be rooting against them every step of the way. Oklahoma City, Houston, Denver, Milwaukee, Toronto, anybody. But it's not going to matter. They're going to win again. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Let's go to Tony out in Oakland. Tony, you're on ESPN Radio, my friend.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Hey, I'm honored to be on your show. I'm so old, I said I better get my question right. I almost said Oilers, but let me tell you, I'm a Warriors fan. I've been around since 1975. But the Houston Rockets, man, scare me. Paul George. Chris Paul had a look on his face that I'll never forget last year. And I've been a basketball fan and a player all my life, and I think the Warriors need to worry about Houston.
Listen, I think it's probably the one team that gives them the most pause and the most concern, but at the end of the day, they beat them last year, and I would think that they beat them again this year.
Okay. Everybody gets up for the Warriors.
Everybody gets up for the Warriors, and how many teams have beaten them during this incarnation?
Well, nobody's beaten them.
Well, Cleveland beat them once, right?
Close. Houston was so close that Paul hadn't got hurt.
You're right, but he did. And do you believe, thanks for the call, Tony, do you believe that he's not going to get hurt this year? I mean, you could almost bank on it that at some point Chris Paul is going to get hurt. Tony in L.A. Tony, you're on ESPN Radio, pal.
Hey, man, how are you doing today?
Good.
Yeah, so just about the previous topic, man, I was, when everybody talks about the playoffs, everyone's talking about can a team actually compete with the Warriors in the playoffs this year? And, like you said, I kind of find it laughable that this talk is still being made. I mean, the Warriors are just light years ahead. I mean, they have nothing to play for in the regular season.
I completely agree. You know what? They're going through the motions, Tony. That's what they're doing. They go through the motions, and when we get to the postseason, that's when they ratchet it up and they blitzkrieg everybody that gets in their way.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. But, for a team, I think the last team to three-peat was when Kobe and Shaq were together. And, in their third year during the playoffs, they had some stretches where they had to go through some up-and-coming teams like the Kings and whatnot. I expect the Warriors to win the championship this year, like a lot of people do. But do you see, if you have to pick one team that could potentially upset the Warriors, because anything can happen in the playoffs, injuries, hope none of them happen. But do you see any team that could potentially, give them trouble, maybe even defeat them? I don't see it. But
okay, let me give you this. It's a good question. The teams that could potentially give them trouble, I think Houston, I think Milwaukee, and I think that's it. I think they could see trouble against Houston in the Western Conference Finals, and I think they could see trouble in the NBA Finals against Milwaukee. Now, when I say trouble, I mean they could extend them to 6 games, maybe even 7. There is no way that I envision this team losing a Game 7. I just don't. I think they're too talented.
Do you see Toronto as a threat? Because Milwaukee's really good this year. Obviously.
Yeah, listen, Tony, I got to run. We're up against it. Toronto's good. I don't know that I trust Kawhi in the biggest of moments, and whoever comes out of the East, I think will just be fodder for what Golden State is capable of doing. All right, great job by everybody. Kat, Nuno, John, excellent job. Stephen A. is back tomorrow, and of course, you have it locked in right here, ESPN Radio and ESPN News.